What began as an exciting appearance by music icon Cher on The View quickly spiraled into one of the most unexpected and explosive live television moments in recent memory, a clash so electric, so raw, that viewers across the country were left stunned, and producers backstage were reportedly scrambling to cut the feed as the situation erupted beyond control. The moment Cher walked onto the stage, radiating confidence in a black leather jacket, oversized sunglasses, and her signature cascade of jet black hair, the crowd erupted in cheers, but there was an unmistakable tension in the air, perhaps a premonition of what was to come, though no one could have predicted just how far things would go. The panel of hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, Alyssa Griffin, and Anna Navarro, welcomed her warmly at first, eager to discuss her latest album, a comeback single that had been dominating streaming charts, and her newly announced political advocacy campaign aimed at boosting voter engagement among Gen Z and marginalized communities. The conversation began respectfully enough, with Cher passionately detailing her concerns about growing political apathy, the threat to women's rights, and what she viewed as a disturbing rise in fascistic rhetoric in America. But when the discussion veered into the realm of celebrity responsibility and public accountability, particularly in regard to misinformation and online activism, a subtle but unmistakable shift occurred as Alyssa Griffin, a former Trump administration aide turned co-host, posed a question that many perceived as baiting, asking Cher whether celebrities should really be the ones influencing political discourse when many are, in her words, uninformed and out of touch with working-class reality. Cher, visibly irked but composed, responded by referencing her decades of activism, from the early days of HIV/AIDS awareness to her work with veterans and Native American communities, emphasizing that she didn't just speak from a podium, she marched, donated, showed up, and spoke out even when it wasn't popular. But Alyssa, pressing on, countered with a comment that seemed to ignite the flame. But you live in a Malibu mansion, fly private, and you're telling people how to vote. How do you reconcile that with the average American's daily struggle? And that was the moment everything exploded. Cher removed her sunglasses slowly, stared directly at Alyssa, and responded not with a soundbite but with a searing, impassioned monologue that many later described as both brutal and necessary, saying, "I've lived through more administrations than you've had birthdays. I've fought for people who didn't even like me. I've been called every name in the book for standing up for what's right. And if you think money cancels out compassion, then maybe you're more out of touch than you think." And the audience, sensing the gravity of the moment, went silent, not a single clap or gasp. Just stunned stillness as Cher's words hung heavy in the air. Joy Behar attempted to diffuse the situation with humor, joking that Cher's truth bombs were so sharp they should come with a trigger warning. But Sunny Hostin leaned forward, visibly nodding in agreement with Cher, and tried to steer the conversation back to the broader issue of civic engagement. But it was too late. The dynamic had shifted, and Cher, no longer interested in diplomacy, doubled down, accusing the media, including shows like The View, of often platforming contrarian voices not to seek truth but to chase controversy, to manufacture viral moments at the expense of nuance, and that they were part of the reason meaningful dialogue had eroded into shouting matches and clickbait clips. Alyssa, now visibly defensive, interrupted, saying that if Cher didn't respect opposing views, she shouldn't be on a panel show, to which Cher snapped back, "I respect facts, not talking points dressed up as opinions," prompting audible gasps and scattered applause from the audience. Producers were reportedly whispering frantically through earpieces, trying to determine whether to go to commercial or let the segment ride out. But before any decision could be made, Whoopi Goldberg leaned in with a rare edge in her voice and attempted to mediate, saying, "We can't do this yelling thing. We've got enough of that out there." But Cher, still calm but resolute, replied, "This isn't yelling, Whoopi. This is what truth sounds like when it's fed up with being polite." And as the audience erupted with a mixture of cheers and groans, the broadcast awkwardly cut to commercial mid-sentence, leaving millions watching at home confused, exhilarated, and waiting for updates. Social media instantly detonated, with hashtags like #ShareOnTheView, #ViewClash, and #ShareVs Alyssa trending worldwide within minutes. And as speculation ran rampant, TMZ broke the story that during the commercial break, a heated off-camera exchange continued, leading producers to inform Cher that her appearance would not continue into the next segment. effectively removing her from the rest of the show. A polite phrasing for what fans quickly dubbed a live TV ejection. Cher, never one to be silenced quietly, later posted on X, formerly Twitter, writing in all caps, "Some people want soft truth that never offends. Sorry. I'm not built that way," and within the hour, her tweet had been shared hundreds of thousands of times, sparking debates across all media platforms about censorship, celebrity activism, and the increasingly blurred line between journalism and entertainment. The View, in the aftermath, issued a carefully worded statement, claiming that creative differences and production timing had led to a shortened interview, but the public wasn't buying it. Pundits across the political spectrum weighed in, with some accusing Cher of being intolerant to dissent, while others praised her for refusing to allow her legacy or intelligence to be undermined by thinly veiled jabs. Meanwhile, Cher appeared unfazed by the backlash and doubled down on her position in follow-up interviews, one of which went viral on a podcast where she said, "The truth doesn't need to shout, but sometimes it needs to stop whispering," and her comments were instantly embraced by a generation of fans who saw in her not just a pop icon, but a fearless elder willing to say what others couldn't. The incident had a ripple effect far beyond a single morning show segment. Viewership for The View spiked the following week, but the tone of the show shifted palpably, with producers reportedly instructing hosts to avoid confrontation that escalates into Cher-level volatility, and in private circles, network insiders were now grappling with the reality that unfiltered voices like Cher's, while risky, were also magnetic, raw, and, ironically, what viewers now craved in a media environment so sanitized it often felt disconnected from truth. In the weeks that followed, think pieces flooded major outlets with headlines like, "Did Cher break the View?" and "The Last Diva Standing," and public debate raged on about whether shows like The View could remain relevant if they continued to penalize authenticity. But for Cher, the moment marked yet another chapter in a life defined by defiance. She didn't just survive the storm, she became it, and in doing so, reminded the world that even in a culture addicted to comfort and consensus, sometimes the most radical act is to speak the truth and refuse to sit down when asked. The fallout from Cher's explosive clash on The View did not dissolve as the news cycle turned. It deepened, took on cultural weight, and ignited new conversations that reached beyond television drama into the heart of America's fractured discourse around media, truth, and generational power. While network executives initially hoped the moment would fade into the ether of internet virality, it instead became a defining flashpoint, quoted by political commentators, dissected in journalism classrooms, and shared in editing suites where producers wondered how much candor was too much for daytime television. Cher's words, "I respect facts, not talking points dressed up as opinions," became a kind of rallying cry, splashed across protest signs, TikTok explainers, and even campaign slogans as political hopefuls tried to tap into her raw, unfiltered honesty. Meanwhile, the panelists of The View, especially Alyssa Griffin, faced relentless online scrutiny. Some defended Alyssa's questioning as fair game, arguing that Cher, like any guest, should expect to be challenged. Others lambasted what they saw as a premeditated attempt to provoke and belittle an icon who had not only paid her dues but rewritten the rules of fame. Within days, the show's subreddit, long a haven for heated discussions, turned into a battleground where users debated everything from Joy Behar's nervous deflection to Whoopi's attempt at neutrality. But what surprised many was Cher's refusal to retreat from the conversation. Rather than issuing carefully worded PR statements or allowing the media to interpret her stance, she took to her own platforms with renewed clarity and purpose. In an Instagram live session watched by nearly 9 million people in 24 hours, she addressed the incident head-on, sitting in her kitchen, no glam team, no filters, just a woman who'd been through decades of public scrutiny, saying, "I'm not mad about being cut off, I'm mad about being dismissed. I didn't survive 60 years in this business by staying quiet when it counted." Her voice cracked once, maybe twice, not with fragility but from the sheer emotional weight of being perpetually expected to shrink herself to fit into polite, marketable boxes. The live went viral, not because of scandal, but because of its honesty, and in the days that followed, the hashtag #ShareUncut began trending globally, with fans demanding that The View release the full, unedited footage of the segment, which many believed included sharper, possibly even more confrontational exchanges cut out of the broadcast. ABC declined to comment, citing editorial standards and airtime constraints, but the silence only fueled the suspicion. In response, Cher's team released her personal audio recording of the full segment, a smart move legally and strategically, and in it, viewers heard the full breadth of the exchange. Cher questioning the ethics of mainstream news platforms, critiquing their corporate affiliations, and at one point telling a visibly rattled producer off camera, "I was invited here to speak, not to be stage managed." That audio changed everything. Suddenly, it wasn't just a celebrity moment, it was a media ethics debate. Journalism schools began using the audio as a case study. Writers published essays comparing Cher's on-air treatment to other women, especially women of color and older women, who had been similarly dismissed or tokenized by polished media spaces that claimed to honor diversity but crumbled under dissent. Even hosts from competing networks weighed in. MSNBC's Joy Reid praised Cher's composure and clarity, calling her a one-woman masterclass in truth-telling, while Fox News commentators used the moment to argue that left-leaning media couldn't handle real debate. But Cher, never content to be a pawn in anyone's narrative, sidestepped partisan co-opting altogether. She made it clear in subsequent interviews that her concern wasn't about ideology, it was about integrity. "I don't care what side you're on," she said on Trevor Noah's podcast. "If you can't handle someone disagreeing without trying to silence them, then maybe you're not ready for a conversation, maybe you're just looking for applause." That quote became the centerpiece of an op-ed she wrote for The Atlantic, titled "Respecting Truth in an Age of Performance," which not only went viral but led to speaking invitations from Ivy League schools, journalism summits, and even political organizations, all hoping to harness the momentum of her unexpected media rebellion. And yet, through all this, Cher didn't posture herself as a revolutionary, she simply acted as one. She continued promoting voter registration campaigns, recorded a stripped-down acoustic protest song called "Noise," and even announced plans to fund a media literacy program for public high schools. Critics who once dismissed her as just a pop star in sequins were now calling her America's reluctant truth-teller, and though Cher laughed at that label, it stuck. Meanwhile, back at The View, ratings remained high, but the atmosphere had changed. Segments grew more cautious. Topics were treaded lightly. Producers quietly began holding longer pre-interview meetings with guests to ensure alignment, and behind the scenes, several staffers reportedly bristled at what they saw as a post-Cher clampdown on spontaneity. Yet for all the controversy, something undeniable had shifted. Viewers were watching differently now, listening for authenticity, searching for cracks in the performance. Cher had broken the spell. Not with scandal, but with clarity. And in doing so, she didn't just exit the show, she walked into the cultural bloodstream, her voice louder than ever.